Welcome to the Astute Prosperity Podcast with your host, John Wei. Join us as we interview successful business owners and professionals, uncovering the strategies that fuel their personal, professional, and financial success. Discover what it takes to thrive.
Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the Astute Prosperity Podcast with myself, John Wei, and today we have the pleasure to have Mr. Lee Nugent on the podcast today. How you doing, Lee?
Man, I'm fantastic. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for
Absolutely.
for taking the time out to share a little bit about yourself and what you do and your learnings with the audience. I really appreciate it. So with that said, would love to maybe kick it off by asking you like what. So tell us about a little bit about you yourself. Where you are today in terms of your real estate career, if you will, or real estate portfolio, and how and kind of tell us a story about like how you got there.
Yeah. So it was a cold October night. I'm a Scorpio. No. let's not go all the way back, right? So we'll just
Okay.
we'll bring it into when real estate kind of comes into play.
Okay.
So it was actually April 24th, 2015.
Okay.
That was
Okay.
the day that we bought our first property.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so our 10-year anniversary is coming up next week. And I'll be speaking at a RIA. And that day I'm going to try to like keep it all, together because it's been a decade of my life, in real estate. And it's been absolutely life-changing, right? So I'll go ahead and tell you that. My wife and I, we started with $6,000. And really that's really where the rub is. A lot of people, they'll ask me, did you really start with $6,000? Truth is, no, we started with $3,000. And then we realized that wasn't enough. So we started another $3,000. So we're in it for $6,000.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of that over the years, started with going in, negotiating high equity deals and, making sure that it's attractive to the bank when we go to refinance our rental properties. And it started with one duplex. And I think 3 weeks later, we closed on our second duplex because when we finally jumped in, John, did we jump? And I've got to say that was what changed our lives. Initially, it was just going to be, hey, we're going to buy a couple properties a year. And then whenever we go to retire, it'll be there for us.
Yeah.
Maybe in hindsight, I should have shared my goals with my wife a little bit more because once I got in there and started buying these properties, I saw the potential for it. Yeah. And I'm like, man, if I just work really hard for a few years, now I can be lazy for the rest of my life. And, one of the things I think Bill Gates had said, if you want something done quickly and effectively, find a lazy person to do it because they're going to find the most effective way to do it. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, the past 10 years has been a lot of me working to be able to be lazy again. Yes. And the properties, I can go into our acquisitions. We've had a murder at one of our properties. So, there's been a lot of stories that I can share with you about the journey. Yeah. You just tell me where you want to go, and I'll dive into it from there for you. I don't want to take the next however long we're going to be on this call to just start and ramble. So give me some guidance, and I'm right here.
Yeah, totally. I think how about we'll kind of land at today. Like where are you today with your portfolio, with your real estate portfolio?
Yeah. So today our portfolio consists of 55 rentals, and it's actually going to be 54 tomorrow. We've actually signed off on a HUD to where we're selling one of the properties. And so we'll be at 54 rentals and still $6,000 invested. We haven't added any more money out of our pockets over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool. And I also have a few other projects. So right now I've got a hard money lending fund that I launched last year because in 2020 I started doing private money lending and then it took on a life of its own. So I decided to develop that business as well.
Yeah.
There's a 90-unit apartment complex that I'm doing a capital raise for in St. Pete, Florida. So we're working on that. And continuing, again, just managing our rental property portfolio. I've got a friend of mine managing now because we moved 1,100 miles away down to Naples, Florida 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much where we're at, you know. And of course, I still continue to, you know, sell real estate, fund deals, and, you know, a little bit of everything that I can do effectively anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And would you say, I mean, you're currently you and your wife are doing it for the fun of the for the fun of the business, not so much of the for the need, right?
Yeah, yeah. So my wife, in 2020, she was able to leave her W-2, and I'd left mine in 2017. So I
Mm-hmm.
became a full-time realtor at that time, and
Hmm.
we were able to build up the business and build up our properties portfolio to where she was able to tell that job goodbye. And that was
Yeah,
shortly after lockdown, right? So or
yeah.
the
Wow.
pandemic, whenever we went into, you know, lockdown, everybody stay at home, don't get
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
Instacart your groceries. So we're doing all that. And my wife was in oil and gas at the time.
Mm.
She was, you know, a corporate job. She didn't enjoy it. And we had been talking about her leaving that anyway. And
Yeah.
that was just the opportunity that she needed to really give her the push.
Wow. That's awesome. I mean, yeah. So, like, I guess how um and was it because of the fact that you got into real estate that allowed you to do that, or allowed your wife to do that?
Without question. I
Yeah,
don't know any other way that I could have done that with her, for her, however you want to put
yeah,
it, because she's been bought in just as much.
yeah,
You know, she puts in the same amount of work, mainly with dealing with me. You know,
yeah,
so that's a job in itself. You know, so I wouldn't say that she's fully retired.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
if it wasn't for real estate, I can tell you exactly where I would be,
yeah.
because at one point I was a poker dealer, and
Oh,
then
wow,
I
interesting.
got, yeah. Oh, whenever I tell you earlier I have ADHD, I mean it. Like, I have career ADHD. Well,
Yeah,
right. So
yeah,
I was a poker dealer throughout most of my 20s. I got married, and shortly after, my wife was like, you know what, this nights, weekends, holidays thing, not really our jam. So
yeah,
I was working as a supervisor at that point because,
yeah,
you know, you move up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it's anybody that ever watches this. If you're in the casino business, you know that you do not want to put on the suit, because once you put on the suit, you can't take it back off and go back to beginning a deal.
yeah.
So all that to say, we talked about it, and I ended up taking an $8 an hour pay cut to go work
Mm.
customer service, entry level corporate America.
Yeah.
And over the few years, I worked my way into sales,
Hmm.
enjoyed it. And I would have to say, if it wasn't for real estate, I would probably still be in sales working for this one. Well, no, I would have probably quit or got fired by
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
There was this one guy that I just really attribute him to being my driving force to getting my real estate license and going full bore. But
yeah, yeah,
you know, I think that I would probably be stuck in corporate America, not really feeling fulfilled, and waiting for my 3 weeks a year to be able to go and take off, you
right,
know?
right.
So if it wasn't for real estate, I think that my life would be a lot more different. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, yeah. It's amazing how real estate has done so much stuff. Just for you, and not only for you, but for a lot of other folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So would you say, like, now that looking back, I think I guess for the real estate career, for the last 10 years, coming up 10 years. Um, what would you say one of your biggest takeaway or biggest learning was from these 10 years? Now, actually, I should ask you the question the other way. If you were to give one piece of advice to you yourself 10 years ago, knowing what you know, like now, like 10 years later, what would you say to yourself, like, to that 10 you know that
Yeah.
that you 10 years ago?
Um, Slow down, boy. Don't, you know, and I say that because whenever I'd set my mind to it that I was going to make it my full time thing, I really
Uh-huh.
did. You know, I
Yeah.
went pure hyper focus on things. and at the sacrifice of damage to my relationship. I'll just be honest with you. So my wife and I, as I was getting ready to leave corporate America, I knew that I had to build up my sales pipeline as a realtor, which consisted of still giving my W-2 the time that I was contracted to give them. So anything outside of that, I had to build my business. That means that I was waking up at 5 o'clock and I was, on the computer looking at the MLS, looking for things for clients. And then I would get ready, go to work, give them their time, and on my 15-minute break in the morning and in the afternoons, go out to my vehicle. And then next thing you know, I'm responding to emails, messages, trying to get that done. On lunch breaks, I'm either going and looking at houses or continuing to work. After hours, as soon as 5 o'clock was there and I was back on my time, I was showing houses or I was looking at houses, trying to find something, right? And then I would usually drag in about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, just in time to take a shower, say goodnight, sleep, wake up and do it again. And that consisted for, I think it was the better part of 3 months. Consistent, right? And on the weekends, we would have a little bit of time together because she was off work. So she would ride with me while I was going to do things. But it unfortunately got to a point to where one day it was, I don't know, about 6:30, 7 o'clock. I remember this vividly because I was on a country road on the side of the road out in rural America, right? This is in Shreveport, Louisiana. And I'm eating this mediocrely cold, like gas station burrito. And if you ever had one of those, you know the kind of cuisine that is. And I'm talking to my wife, trying to get a couple, words in with her, say hello and everything. And, she's like, I need to talk. And if you've been in a relationship for any length of time, you know that those words are
that's not a good, that's not a good talk.
You don't want to hear it. Nobody does. So I'm like, all right, what you got? And, she said, I feel like we're just roommates. I don't see you. I don't feel like I get to talk to you. And to me, that was the toughest thing that I've dealt with to that point. I've had some challenging deals, challenging realtors and investors that I've worked with over the years, but that was the tough part because, one of the things that I did it for was her,
Yeah, exactly.
And accelerating our retirement because, throughout my 20s, I didn't have a 401k. I didn't do those things to build retirement. I hadn't planned for it.
Yes.
So in my mind, I'm working so hard for this freedom that we have now.
Yeah.
But it came with a cost, not just a price. So I would say kind of going back to that. And since then, we've been able to build and strengthen our relationship. And she understands that there are seasons, for celebration and seasons for work. But that being said, I would say that, going back and telling myself that years ago to, hey, make sure that you still know why you're doing it and put in that time with those people. So, if somebody's really getting out there and you're going to make it your focus and you have a relationship with someone, make sure that your partner is brought in and they share the vision, not just see it, but they share the vision because that's going to be key.
That is some great advice. I really, the audience would really appreciate
well earned. I'll tell you, I had to learn that lesson.
Yeah. No, thank you for that advice. That is timeless advice, actually. I appreciate that. So would you, not, with that said, I think that's a pretty good point to sort of to wrap up like our show today. But I wanted to ask you, like, I usually just ask one book, but for you, I think I want to ask two books. one book for non-real estate related and one book for a real estate related book that you would recommend for our audience today.
Yeah. I could be super conceited and just say, go get my book, right? I'm not going to do that part.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that you have a book. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, I did. I wrote more so. It's called a Real Estate Investing Primer, and it's actually for free on my website. You just go there, download a PDF of it, or you can go on Amazon and get it from there. I tell people save the $13 and just go get it for free. But I would say the real estate book that and it's maybe not necessarily just real estate, but rich dad, poor dad. Obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate to sound so cliche and
Yeah.
stereotypical, but it
Yeah.
helps you start to understand and shift your mind from being an employee to being a business owner. And you
Yes.
have to work through those sections, right?
Yeah.
So as you go through the cash flow quadrant, you're going to understand like, all right, my mindset had to shift so that I could achieve these things.
Yes.
And speaking of mindset, I would have to say Brian Tracy's No Excuses is
No
probably
excuses.
just, yeah, it's one of my favorite books, and it teaches you more about detachment and also just kind of accepting these things for yourself. Because through my life, I didn't have the easiest childhood. I grew up in, again, rural Louisiana. If you can't hear it in my voice, then I don't know what to tell you. But there were times we didn't have electricity. I had to go hunting at night with my father a couple times, that I can recall
Wow.
vividly to have food for the next day. Right.
Yeah.
So with that, I had a lot of reasons I could have been, woe is me. It's everybody else's fault. But that book gave me such a powerful mindset shift. It said that you might not be responsible for the situation that you're in. However,
Right.
you are responsible for getting out of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes down to the accountability of saying, hey, look, might not be my fault. However, it's my responsibility. So
Yes.
I would say No Excuses by Brian Tracy. Absolutely.
That will be on my list, actually, on my daily walks to to listen to it for sure. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, if our audience wants to get a hold of you, or if you're open to it, where would you direct them to go, or how would they be able to get a hold of you?
So the easiest way to do it is to go to rewithley.com. So that's rewithley.com.
Okay.
You can always follow me on social media. The only thing is, yes, my phone number is out there. However, please do not cold call me and ask to just pick my brain.
Yeah.
I'm usually very protective of my time, right?
Yeah.
So if you reach out to me in social media DMs, then I'll respond as soon as I can. I do promise that. However, and I've had this happen before, people call me 3, 4, 5 times in a row.
Oh
and
my
then
God.
I'm in a meeting, and then I try to call them back. They're like, yeah, I just wanted to see if I could take you to lunch. I'm like, no, you can't. So,
Wow.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
mainly just time management really on
Yeah.
my part, because now I've learned that lesson of how valuable it is to spend with my spouse and pour back into that relationship. Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anybody else that's put up with me as long as she has. And I don't know anybody else that's willing to. So I need to make sure that I invest in her as much as I invest in real estate.
That's awesome. That's great. That's great advice. Thank you for that. Yeah. Awesome. And thank you so much. I really, Lee, thank you so much for your time and your sharing today. I think
happy to come on anytime.
Yeah, no, I myself learned a lot from just our chat today. Truly, so yeah, thank you so much for your time, and look forward to get to keeping in touch, and the best of luck to you for the rest, with your real estate future or with your.
And same to you, John. I appreciate you even
you.
having me on. And
Thank
just
you.
real quick, a little bit of encouragement for you.
Yes.
You're putting in a lot of work, and you're laying a great foundation by doing this
Thank you.
podcast. So I'm just going to tell you, stay with it. You're great. And I look forward to, hopefully coming back on here if I didn't bore your audience too much.
No, thank you. No, thank you so much. I really appreciate that and offering that. I truly appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lee. All right, appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
You've been listening to the Astute Prosperity Podcast. Want to be featured on the show? Head over to astuteprosperitypodcast.com/guest and apply to share your success story with our listeners.